Emma's hands trembled as she pulled the yellowed envelope from the spine of the old family Bible. 22 years of feeling like an outsider in her own home. And now this, a letter written in handwriting she'd never seen, addressed simply to "my precious daughter." The words that would change everything were written by the woman who gave her life, hidden away like a secret prayer between sacred pages. What she was about to discover would shatter every painful assumption she'd carried about not belonging and reveal how the Virgin Mary had orchestrated the most beautiful love story across two mothers' hearts. The tension in the Morrison household had reached a breaking point. Emma, adopted at 6 years old by Michael and Catherine Morrison, had always felt like she was playing a role in someone else's family. Despite their genuine love, every family photo felt like evidence of her otherness, her dark hair against their blonde, her reserved nature contrasting with their boisterous family traditions. The invisible wall between them had grown thicker with each passing year, built from unspoken fears and misunderstandings that no one knew how to address. If you've ever felt your family falling apart, this story will give you hope. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you believe in Mary's power to heal families. To create a spiritual chain of prayer for all broken families, write "heal" in the comments below. Let's unite our faith and ask Mary to intercede for every family watching this. Just 3 weeks earlier, Emma had made the most painful decision of her young life. After another family gathering where she felt invisible, where inside jokes flew over her head and childhood memories excluded her completely, she'd quietly announced she needed space. The devastation in Catherine's eyes and the helpless anger in Michael's voice had confirmed her worst fear, that love could never be enough to bridge the gap between chosen family and blood family. She'd moved out of their suburban home, convinced that her presence was a constant reminder of what they'd settled for instead of having their own biological child. The silence between them had stretched for weeks. Emma threw herself into work, while Michael and Catherine agonized over every word of their last conversation, replaying moments where they might have done something different. The family that had once shared Sunday dinners and holiday traditions now existed in separate worlds, connected only by grief and a love too complicated to express. None of them understood that this painful separation was actually the beginning of Mary's most miraculous intervention. Little did they know that Emma's decision to pack up her childhood bedroom would lead to a discovery that would rewrite their entire understanding of family, faith, and destiny. As she sorted through books and keepsakes, preparing to sever the last physical ties to the only family she'd ever known, her fingers found something impossible, a message from the past that would prove the Virgin Mary had been watching over their family long before any of them had even met. But what Emma found in that letter would challenge everything she believed about why she'd never felt like she truly belonged. The roots of Emma's pain stretched back to her earliest memories with the Morrison family. At 6 years old, she'd arrived at their doorstep carrying a small backpack and wounds that ran deeper than anyone realized. Michael and Catherine had opened their hearts completely, transforming their guest bedroom into a princess paradise, enrolling her in dance classes, and showering her with the kind of unconditional love they dreamed of giving their own biological child. But somehow, despite their best intentions, invisible barriers began forming that would take 16 years to finally rupture completely. The fractures started small. Family stories that began with "remember when we" always seemed to exclude Emma's timeline. Holiday traditions felt borrowed rather than inherited. When relatives visited, Emma noticed how conversations shifted slightly in her presence, as if everyone was carefully avoiding topics that might remind her she wasn't born into this family. The Morrisons' genuine attempts to include her only highlighted how different she felt. Their Irish heritage celebrations, their shared mannerisms, their effortless inside jokes that had developed before she arrived. Catherine had tried everything to bridge the gap, Special mother-daughter trips, cooking lessons featuring family recipes, even genealogy projects where they created an adoption tree to honor Emma's place in their family. Michael threw himself into being the father he'd always wanted to be, coaching her softball team, helping with homework, walking her down the aisle at her high school graduation. Yet despite their devotion, Emma remained convinced that somewhere deep down, they must wonder what their real biological daughter would have been like. The breaking point came during last month's family barbecue. Emma had watched from the kitchen window as Michael's sister shared pregnancy news. The entire family erupting in celebrations about the first biological grandchild. The words weren't meant to hurt, but they shattered something fragile inside Emma's heart. When Catherine later tried to comfort her, explaining that family love transcends biology, Emma finally voiced the fear she'd carried for 16 years. "You took me in because you had to settle. I was your second choice when you couldn't have your own children." The devastation on Catherine's face revealed a truth Emma wasn't prepared for, that her adoptive mother's pain ran just as deep as her own. Years of failed attempts to prove their love had left Catherine feeling helpless and rejected. Michael's quiet frustration stemmed from watching two people he adored hurt each other without understanding how to fix it. They were three hearts breaking in isolation, each convinced they weren't enough for the others. That's when Emma made her painful decision to leave. She'd convinced herself that her absence would free them to pursue the biological family they'd always really wanted. The 3 weeks of silence that followed were torturous for everyone. Emma eating dinner alone in her studio apartment, Catherine crying over untouched place settings, Michael driving past Emma's workplace, hoping to catch a glimpse of the daughter who felt too far away to reach. What none of them understood was that this moment of complete desperation, Emma sorting through childhood memories while preparing to cut all ties, was exactly where the Virgin Mary had been waiting to begin her most beautiful miracle. Emma's fingers traced the worn leather cover of the family Bible as she pulled it from the bookshelf in her childhood bedroom. She'd packed everything else, photo albums, school trophies, keepsakes that no longer felt like they belonged to her. But something drew her to this forgotten book tucked behind her old textbooks. As she lifted it, a yellowed envelope slipped from between the pages and fluttered to the floor like a feather carried by divine breath. The handwriting on the outside made her heart stop. "For my precious daughter, from your first mama." With trembling hands, Emma unfolded the letter that would change everything. The words were written in flowing script, dated just 3 days before Emma's birth. "My dearest baby girl, I am writing this as I pray my rosary tonight, begging Our Lady to help me find you the perfect family. I cannot keep you, but I can love you enough to give you to parents who will treasure you the way you deserve. I'm placing this letter in the Bible I'm giving to your new family, trusting that someday Mary will guide you to find it when you need it most. I've prayed 50 rosaries asking the Virgin Mother to watch over you, to help you feel at home wherever you land, and to heal any wounds that come from not growing up in my arms." The letter continued with words that shattered Emma's world. "I've asked Mary specifically to bless your adoptive mother with the same maternal love she has for Jesus, and to give your adoptive father the protective strength of Saint Joseph. I pray that Mary will help them love you not as a replacement for the children they cannot have, but as the specific daughter, chosen especially for their hearts. Sweet girl, you are not second best to anyone. You are Mary's gift, perfectly placed in the family that was meant to be yours." Through tears that had been building for 16 years, Emma sank to her knees beside her childhood bed. For the first time in her life, she spoke directly to the Virgin Mary, her voice barely a whisper. "Holy Mother, I don't even know how to pray to you properly, but my birth mother believed you were watching over me. I'm so broken, Mary. I feel like I don't belong anywhere. If you really were involved in placing me with Michael and Catherine, please help me understand why it hurts so much. Please heal whatever's wrong between us. I can't keep living with this pain, and I can't keep hurting them. If you're real, if you really care about families like my birth mother believed, please show me what to do." The room filled with an inexplicable peace as Emma clutched the letter to her chest. She'd expected nothing, hoped for nothing, but as she whispered, "Amen," her phone buzzed with an incoming call. The caller ID made her breath catch. "Catherine, Mom." It was the first time Catherine had reached out since Emma had left, and it was happening within minutes of her first prayer to Mary. But this was only the beginning of the signs that would prove the Virgin Mary had been orchestrating this reunion long before Emma was even born. Emma stared at her ringing phone, Catherine's name glowing on the screen like a beacon in the darkness. Her finger hovered over the answer button as her heart hammered against her ribs. When she finally whispered, "Hello," Catherine's voice was thick with tears. "Emma, honey, I don't know why I called. I was just sitting in your old room, and something told me I needed to hear your voice. I miss you so much it's like missing a piece of my soul." The timing was impossible to ignore. Mary's first gentle nudge toward healing had begun. Over the following days, the Virgin Mary began weaving an intricate tapestry of seemingly coincidental encounters. Emma found herself running into Michael at the grocery store where she'd never shopped before. Drawn there by an inexplicable craving for the Irish soda bread Catherine used to make, their awkward small talk revealed something stunning. Michael confessed he'd been driving by her apartment every day, not to intrude, but because being near where she lived made him feel less like he'd lost his daughter forever. The raw pain in his eyes showed Emma a father's heart she'd never fully recognized. 2 days later, Emma discovered Catherine waiting in the parking lot of her work building. But instead of the confrontation Emma feared, Catherine simply handed her a worn prayer book and said, "This was my mother's. She prayed the rosary every night for the daughter she thought she'd never have. I wanted you to know that praying for you started long before you were born." As Catherine walked away, Emma noticed the prayer book was bookmarked at prayers to Mary for family healing, the same prayers her birth mother had mentioned in the letter. Mary's intervention was just beginning. If you want to see more amazing family miracles, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. But even as Mary orchestrated these divine appointments, obstacles mounted like walls between their healing hearts. Emma's fear of vulnerability made her retreat after each encounter, convinced that accepting their love would only lead to more eventual rejection. She'd return to her apartment and build mental barriers, telling herself these moments of connection were just guilt and obligation, not genuine family bonds. Meanwhile, Michael and Catherine wrestled with their own paralyzing fear of pushing too hard. They'd spent years walking on eggshells around Emma's pain, terrified that one wrong word would drive her away permanently. Each tender moment was followed by anxious overthinking. Should they call? Should they give her space? Their desperate love felt like a burden they didn't know how to carry without overwhelming the daughter they cherished. The obstacles deepened when Emma's landlord mentioned seeing an older couple sitting in their car outside her building multiple evenings. Feeling suffocated and watched, Emma sent a harsh text demanding they stop stalking her. The words cut Michael and Catherine to their core, making them question whether their love was actually hurting rather than healing. They pulled back completely, afraid their presence was poison rather than medicine. This painful withdrawal created the very crisis point Mary had been preparing them for, a final confrontation where all three broken hearts would have to choose between safe, separate loneliness or the terrifying vulnerability required for true family reunion. The silence between them had stretched for a torturous week when Emma made a decision that would change everything. Clutching her birth mother's letter and the prayer book Catherine had given her, she drove to the Morrison house on a rain-soaked Thursday evening. Her hand shook as she rang the doorbell, knowing this conversation would either heal their family forever or destroy it completely. When Catherine opened the door, her tear-stained face revealed the depth of a mother's heartbreak. She'd been crying over photo albums, reliving every precious memory with the daughter who felt lost to her. Michael appeared behind Catherine, and for the first time in weeks, all three members of their fractured family stood in the same space. The tension was suffocating until Emma pulled out the yellowed letter with trembling fingers. "I need to show you something," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the storm outside. "I found this in the family Bible, and I think Mary wanted me to find it exactly when I did." As Emma read her birth mother's words aloud, the prayers to the Virgin Mary, the specific requests for adoptive parents with maternal love like Mary's and protective strength like St. Joseph's, the insistence that Emma was not second best, but specifically chosen, Catherine's face transformed with an expression of pure amazement. When Emma reached the part about her birth mother praying that Mary would help them love her, not as a replacement for the children they cannot have, but as the specific daughter chosen especially for their hearts, Catherine gasped and ran to the kitchen. She returned carrying a small wooden box that Emma had never seen before. With shaking hands, Catherine opened it to reveal prayer cards, rosary beads, and a journal filled with handwritten prayers. "Emma," she whispered, "I need to tell you something that's going to sound impossible." Catherine opened the journal to an entry dated 3 years before Emma's adoption. "Dear Virgin Mary, Michael and I have been trying to have children for 5 years. The doctors say it's not going to happen naturally. But I feel in my heart that somewhere there's a little girl who needs us as much as we need her. Please, Holy Mother, bring us the daughter who's meant to be ours." The room fell completely silent, except for the sound of 3 hearts, realizing the magnitude of Mary's miraculous orchestration. Both mothers, one biological, one adoptive, had been praying to the same Virgin Mary for the same little girl before they ever knew she existed. Mary hadn't just placed Emma with any loving family. She had specifically answered 2 women's prayers simultaneously, weaving their separate needs into one perfect divine plan. Michael's strong arms wrapped around both his wife and daughter as they cried tears that had been waiting 16 years to fall. "You were never our second choice, Emma," he said through his own tears. "You were Mary's first choice for us. She heard both your mother's prayers and brought you exactly where you belonged." But the most miraculous moment was yet to come. The revelation that would prove Mary's planning had been even more intricate than any of them had imagined. As Catherine continued reading from her prayer journal, the final pieces of Mary's masterpiece fell into place. The entry that made everyone gasp was dated exactly 1 week before Emma's birth mother wrote her letter. "Holy Mary, I had the strangest dream last night. I saw a little girl with dark curls and sad eyes, and somehow I knew she was meant to be my daughter. In the dream, you told me to prepare my heart because this child would come to us through pain, but that pain would become our greatest blessing. Please let me find her soon." Catherine's hands trembled as she turned the page to reveal the final entry. "Today we got the call about a 6-year-old girl named Emma who needs a family. The social worker said she has dark curls and the saddest eyes she's ever seen. Mary, you prepared my heart in that dream. This is her. This is our daughter." The date was exactly 16 years ago, the day Emma came home to the Morrison family. The miraculous truth washed over them like warm light. Mary had not only orchestrated Emma's placement, but had been preparing Catherine's heart through divine dreams before Emma even existed in their world. Every painful moment, every feeling of not belonging, every attempt at connection, all of it had been part of Mary's patient plan to bring them to this moment of complete understanding. Through tears of joy and amazement, the Morrison family experienced their first real embrace in months. Emma felt something she'd never experienced before, the absolute certainty that she belonged exactly where she was. The invisible walls that had separated them for 16 years crumbled as they realized they hadn't been struggling against each other, but had all been struggling toward this moment of divine revelation. The healing rippled outward immediately. When Michael called his sister to share the miracle, she broke down sobbing, confessing she'd been praying for their family's reunion since the barbecue incident. "I felt so terrible about my thoughtless words," she cried. "I've been asking Mary to fix what I helped break." Even she had unknowingly been part of Mary's plan, her careless comment serving as the catalyst that drove Emma to finally leave and discover her birth mother's letter. Catherine's elderly mother, who had prayed her rosary every night for a granddaughter, wept with joy when they called to tell her Mary had answered her prayers in the most beautiful way possible. Extended family members began sharing their own stories of praying for Emma's sense of belonging, revealing that Mary had enlisted an entire family's worth of intercessors without anyone realizing they were part of a divine conspiracy of love. Their pastor, Father Martinez, later explained that this was exactly how Mary works. She takes our broken pieces and weaves them into something more beautiful than we could have ever imagined alone. The Virgin Mary specializes in impossible families, he told them. She took two mothers' separate prayers and created one perfect answer. What happened next would prove that Mary's miracle was not just about healing their past, but about transforming their future in ways that would impact generations. 6 months after that miraculous evening of revelation, the Morrison family had transformed into something even more beautiful than they'd ever dreamed possible. Emma had moved back home, not out of obligation or guilt, but because she finally understood this was where she truly belonged. The family that had once walked on eggshells around each other now shared an unshakable bond, forged through the fires of pain and polished by Mary's perfect timing. Their Sunday dinners were no longer performances of family unity. They were celebrations of a love that had been tested and proven authentic. Emma started a tradition of reading her birth mother's letter aloud every year on her adoption anniversary, followed by prayers of gratitude to the Virgin Mary, who had answered two mothers' prayers with one perfect solution. Catherine framed both the letter and her own prayer journal entries, creating a shrine in their living room that honored Mary's role as the ultimate family healer. Michael, who had never been particularly religious, now led the family rosary every Thursday evening. The same day of the week, Emma had courageously returned home with the letter that changed everything. The ripple effects of their healing continued to spread far beyond their immediate family. Emma began volunteering at the Catholic Adoption Agency, sharing her story with other adoptive families, struggling with bonding and belonging. Her testimony about Mary's intercession gave hope to dozens of families who had felt broken beyond repair. Catherine started a prayer group specifically for adoptive and birth mothers, teaching them how to entrust their children to Mary's maternal care across the complexities of modern family structures. What this miracle reveals about the Virgin Mary's power is profound and life-changing. Mary doesn't just heal individual hearts, she specializes in restoring the sacred bonds that make families whole. She sees the bigger picture that we cannot see, weaving together prayers, dreams, timing, and circumstances across years and even decades to create perfect moments of healing. Mary understands that family wounds require more than human effort. They need divine intervention that can transform pain into purpose and separation into deeper love. This miracle teaches us that Mary's maternal heart breaks when families are broken. She actively works to heal estrangement, restore communication, and rebuild trust between parents and children who love each other but don't know how to bridge their differences. She orchestrates encounters, softens hearts, and provides exactly the right words at exactly the right moments. Most importantly, she never gives up on families, even when the situation seems impossible and the pain seems permanent. If you're watching this and your own family feels fractured beyond repair, take courage from Emma's story. Whether you're dealing with adoption struggles, generational trauma, divorce aftermath, or any kind of family estrangement, Mary is already working on your behalf. She's waiting for your invitation to begin healing what seems unhealable. Start by praying one simple rosary, asking Mary to show you how to love your family the way she loves Jesus, unconditionally and eternally. Have you experienced Mary's healing in your family? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more miraculous family healing stories.